I knew when we did the play, but, it was something like 10,000 or tens of thousands of guys working in the shipyard. And by, I guess immediately after the war, it started to go down, but through the early 60s, there was still a thriving shipyard there, and then they just shut it down completely. And these neighborhoods have never been the same.
And people came into this building?
Well, it was actually a bar. It was a bar that was owned by Joe's grandparents.
So they came here after work to drink and reminisce or socialize and hang out?
Yeah. And that's actually where the play Last Rites was set. Was
in the bar?
In that same bar, yeah. And my character did a little too much drinking. But it's funny because when I first got out of college, I worked with a theater company in Newark, New Jersey, back when Newark, New Jersey was the car theft capital of the world, and not that it's that much better now. And, we were around for about 10 years, and then just got tired of kind of beating our heads against the wall. And Joe, in I guess 7 years now, has gotten much farther than we ever did. Just in getting this building built and developing the audience he has. I think it's great. It doesn't seem to be anything else. There's not a restaurant opening down the block, and I don't see that, happening anytime soon.
So you don't see the, what is it called, gentrification process happening in the area?
Yeah, well, I don't think it has to be necessarily,
doesn't have to become colonies,
gentrified, but, you just need, people need jobs. I mean, it's the same everywhere, you have a community where people don't have jobs and they're poor and they're going to do what they have to do to get by, and, and you're going to have all kinds of problems with drugs and everything else, I think it all starts with just not having anything to do. If you can't make a living and you're just sitting around all day trying to kill time, you're going to do the wrong thing.
I think that it was a big task for him to take on, and I'm really proud of him for doing it. It's amazing the accomplishments he's made over the last few years. I think it's a wonderful thing for the city to have something like this. Even when we built the building, the actual theater 2 years ago, this was the only theater being built in the country that was dedicated just for theater at that time. So it was really, really a huge thing. And the neighborhood really recognized it. They're very respectful of it. They appreciate that it's here. We have, every show we have one weekend, one night, where we do neighborhood night, and we give tickets out to people in the neighborhood just to give them an opportunity to come in if they can't afford it or anything like that. So it's nice to have that for them.
And do they come and enjoy the performances?
Yeah, we always are almost sold out those nights because we usually sell, I think we give out 30 tickets for those shows to the neighborhood, and they are almost always full. So.
Where do you think Joe gets his ideas from?
I think a lot of it comes from growing up here, and I think that he wanted to try and get it back to what it was, and I think that's his biggest inspiration for what he's doing.
What's your impression of Camden?
There's so many different organizations and groups that are really putting in a lot of effort to try and make it better and to make it great again, and I think it can be. It's going to take a lot of people, willing to try. Just it being here, it's giving some people some hope that, people aren't afraid to come here. They want to come here and see things like this because it gives something back to the city a little bit. It's, we have, other than neighborhood night, we also, a few times a year, I think it's like once a month or once every other month, we have a Saturday morning where we'll open the doors for the kids in the neighborhood, and they'll come in and we'll have like movies for them and popcorn and snacks and stuff. So it gives them something else to do besides just hanging out at home or playing outside on the street, just little things like this. His approach is really very laid back. He lets them, when he's directing a play, it's very organic for the actors. He really lets them find the roles themselves. He's not, really hard on about blocking and making sure every line is perfect right away. He lets them just get there on their own, just because it makes the character more personal for them, and it really shows in the production.
In this county, like down one road, a few towns over, very different town, very different, quite affluent, like comfortable.
Different from Camden.
Very different from Camden, oh certainly,
Yeah.
but very, very nearby. I went to school at William Mary in Virginia. Is committed to choosing, producing, and being involved with theater that is about things that are essential and feel essential for him to present to a community, especially a community that is searching for a voice, is searching for their own identity, is searching for their own security, is searching for, I don't know, when there's a lot of raw living in Camden, and I think a lot of the work we do here reflects that. And
What are some of those themes that...
involved with that is he doesn't want to do like kind of fluffy stuff that makes people feel comfortable. He wants to challenge people.
And he picks certain playwrights.
He picks Tennessee Williams. He picks Eugene O'Neill because
why those guys? What is it about them?
the stuff they wrote is very close to. Has a lot of the characters feel a lot of hurt, are very damaged, dysfunctional people, which is incredibly attractive to me as an actor. Because like I want to be messing with that stuff because that's the kind of stuff that makes me feel most fully satisfied and makes me feel like I'm really involved and really yeah.
And when people come to Camden to
That they feel like there's a community, at least like in a more abstract sense, they have community with a historical character or a community with a character they saw that's fictional. Or community with a certain, or feel like commune with a certain idea, certain, like I thought that, or like in my darkest moments I feel that, you know, or like that certain, I can see myself. There's redemption, there's like, it's, things in this world are out of your hands, and no matter how hard you try, gnash your teeth and fight against it and lash out, that is meaningless when there are certain unseen, gigantic, cosmic forces at work that might put you on a certain path. It might give.
5 years ago, when he was still producing plays in the bottom of the church.
Okay. Because that's where the first version of the theater
the original
was, right?
theater was in the basement of the church.
Right.
And he was auditioning for a play called Exonerated,
Okay.
which was a script I'd known about for some time,
Okay.
dealing with the problems on death row. And so I jumped at the opportunity to come down and read for him, and he cast me in it. And that was the beginning of my friendship with Joe. And during the run of that play, they were beginning destruction of this. Joe had told me about his vision for this theater.
What was his vision to you? What did he share?
Well, Joe has this motto where he says, where the theater company will say, art will save us. With the idea that the arts can play a pivotal role in the redevelopment of Camden, giving it a sense of life, giving it a cultural life, bringing people into town, realizing you can come here and you can make a contribution as an actor or as a donor, as an audience member,
Right.
and thereby make a difference in an area. Though there were some people of color in attendance, it was mostly a white audience, and I think built on the churchgoers who knew and respected Father Doyle and his work, and would still come in, pull it off. There was something, Joe has a sort of effervescence and an energy and a belief in what he was about, and it was infectious. And one Sunday, prior to a matinee performance, I had attended the services, and it was, and I'm a lapsed Catholic, so I'm not sure what the name of that particular Sunday was, but they gave out holy water. And Joe and I came over here with our vials, and we doused and blessed and prayed for this site that it might actually happen.
Yeah.
And Joe was so full of conviction, I thought it would happen. Sacrifices of an area of the country that had been cannibalized, had been left destitute, had been left without support, had been left without hope.
And what does that mean to you?
That means coming from this very dark place and realizing that life is still worth living.
My father from North Camden and my mother from East Camden. So I've been involved in the Waterfront South neighborhood for about 6 years now, and I'm actually a board member with the theater here. So,
and how did you?
When the building was being built, theater to me in this neighborhood represents opportunity, and we run a children's movie day. We're working on a children's program. We want the neighborhood involved, and it's an opportunity to learn something, grow your experience, learn the arts. Come in here. Cafe was Joe's grandfather's cafe, and it's on this site. And he's from Camden, his family's from Camden too, and it's really coming back to honor his grandparents and produce the best art that he can. And again, I think to really give the neighborhood an opportunity to learn something and really experience something great.
And do you think that the people that come down here to see the play, they have any reservations about coming to Camden, or do you think they're comfortable and it's a no-brainer for them?
No, I think people that don't know the neighborhood have reservations, but the people that do, and we have a patron list we have people that come all the time. Would like to grow the base. Every season, the number of seats sold goes up. So we're slowly getting recognition, and I think once you come, you come back.
Good. Listen, we'll
I presently live in West Deptford, but I'm from Camden County originally, a small town of Brookline, and moved around the country a little bit, but we're settled here in South Jersey. Kind of excited to be able to come to something in Camden because this is where we always came when we were kids.
And
Very, very impressed with the small theater, the innovation that you see, where many times we have season tickets at the Walnut. There are plays that have been done before. We happen to...
Well, I was born and raised in Delaware County, and I live there now in the town of Drexel Hill.
Okay, good. And you
The quality of the work they do has really been wonderful.
Fantastic.
That's the really.
What did you think of today's performance?
I enjoyed it very much. As I say, my problem with it is that I think you'd get a more honest reaction to the play as a play if people came to it not knowing that Eugene O'Neill wrote it.
Okay.
My problem is I've been reading O'Neill since I was in college, and you know how his life played out.
Right.
So I tend to take a more pessimistic view of the play than some of the people, but I thought it was well done and well cast. And for anybody who knows O'Neill, the echoes of what's to come, for Waiting for Lefty or not Waiting for Lefty, that's so dead. I'm sorry, for Long Day's Journey.
Right.
For The Iceman Cometh, for Huey. I mean, it's fascinating to watch that.
Now, for
Fascinating is you can tell this is obviously a neighborhood that's really in transition. I mean, it's got a long way to go. But you walk in there, and it's such a beautiful little theater.
Right.
It's beautifully laid out. The acoustics are wonderful. It's just, for us, it takes us about 45 minutes to get here, but you can park right here, and we love it. And as I say, the things they've done have been consistently well cast, well done, and thoughtful choices.
Terrific.
School church in Haddonfield.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
And what brings you out here on this fine Sunday afternoon?
Well, I have a vested interest. Sean, Ned, the actor, is my son.
Ned is your son.
Yes.
How did he do today?
Well, he did fabulous as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
And I brought 25 people from my church down.
Wow, 25 people.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Now, have you been to other performances here before?
Yes, we came when my son Sean was in Night of the Iguana.
Okay, so he's a regular.
And so we came down with 30 people for that show.
Okay. And what did you think of today's performance?
I thought it was excellent.
Okay.
I liked the beginning when they gave some information about Eugene O'Neill. I liked the discussion afterwards with Kevin.
Okay.
So it was really enjoyable.
And what's your understanding with this theater?
Well, I think he's trying to bring some transformation to this part of the neighborhood and show Camden isn't only that place that's known for the number of murders that are committed each year,
Right.
but he's trying to bring about a renaissance here as well.
And how successful do you think he's been
I think
so
he's
far?
been very successful. I'm impressed with the productions they've done here. And our church does most of its outreach ministry here in Camden, so we have a vested interest. We're only a few miles down the road.
That's not your van over there that brought a bunch of people.
No, that was Marty Gutwein.
That's another church.
From St. Paul's Episcopal Church.
Ah, so yeah, the church is bringing their crews
That's
down
right.
here
Well,
today.
it's Sunday afternoon.
All right, good.
We get them in the morning. We've got a captive audience.
Thank you
And I live in Collingswood, and it's about maybe 3 miles from here, very close to here.
Okay. And what made you decide today to come to this performance of The Exorcist?
Well, I go to Sacred Heart Church across the street, which kind of was the germ for getting this theater started. And the other night I went to a reception that Brother Mickey McGrath, also a neighborhood artist, was doing a presentation of his exhibition over at the Stedman Fine Arts Center at Rutgers. And Joe was there, and he was really saying that the exorcism was going to be opening and it was going to be a great presentation. And I had my doubts about coming because so many of the shows are a little dark, but he kind of swayed me in his presentation. So I thought, well, let me see if I can get a ticket, because it's a very small theater and the tickets were selling very fast.
Yes.
So fortunately I was successful, so I came this afternoon.
And what did you think of today's performance?
I thought it was quite good. Joe had said the other day when some people were saying, oh, it's about O'Neill's suicide attempt, you could hear the crowd say, oh.
It's not good for me.
But Joe promised, he said, you'll laugh more during this show than you would ever imagine laughing during an O'Neill production. And he was right. He was right. So there was some lightheartedness, but still serious themes as ever.
Okay, good. And have you been to other of Joe's performances?
Of trouble, of difficulty, of trying to get beyond that.
Right.
And in some ways, I suppose that's part of a reflection of how Joe sees maybe the neighborhood, that it's been through a really rough time, but there's hope at the end of the tunnel. There's light, there's beauty. It's there, we just have to find it.
And
Absolutely. I think this is one of the gems of Waterfront South, of this neighborhood. It is an attempt, and a very successful attempt in my mind, to bring beauty, to bring creativity, to bring opportunity for expression of beauty and creativity into the ordinary everyday lives of folks who live here, who work here, who come here to worship. And I think it's been a stunning success as far as that goes. And I am.
Well, I'm originally from this neighborhood. Originally from here, but I live in Lindenwold now.
Live in Lindenwold. All right, good. And Paul, tell me, what's your role here at the theater?
Well, I just keep my eye on things, make sure security is straight. People don't have to feel threatened, by the neighborhood and things, so they'll feel comfortable while they're watching the show.
I see. And do you do this for every show that
Yes, sir.
that
Yes,
Joe
sir.
puts on here?
Yes, I do.
How long have you been doing it?
Since last year.
You've been doing it since last year?
Since last February.
So you're here just to make sure everybody feels safe coming in and out?
And I maintain the building too.
And you maintain the building?
Yeah. I'm the one that keeps the building clean.
Okay. Have there ever been any incidents?
We've had a few incidents, but car break-ins mainly.
That happened,
before I came on.
Yeah.
But after I came on, we haven't had any incidents at all.
Okay, good. And what do you know about this theater? What do you?
Well, I go back a long way. I used to play baseball back here, and I played basketball for Sacred Heart. I played Little League, talking about the mid-'60s and stuff. So I go back with this neighborhood. So I remember when the building, the original, when Walt owned it and things. And I just, it's just a good thing for the neighborhood.
That's great. And how did you get the job?
Well, I've worked at Sacred Heart for Father Doyle. I've been doing floors for Sacred Heart for like 20 years.
Doing floors for Sacred Heart?
Yeah. I strip and wax the floors at the school and at the church and stuff.
So when the theater was in the church, is that where you first?
No, I started just doing the classrooms in the school.
Okay.
And I just, Father Doyle is a good friend.
And he told you about the opportunity?
Yeah, and he got me here.
All right.
Because I retired from working at the school because I got bad back. So.
Well, keep everybody safe.
Yeah, try to.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, see you later.
Everything. We had Brian Dennehy here at the theater last February, and I asked him in front of an audience of people, I said, what does it take to play O'Neill? And he said, you have to leave your heart, your soul, your mind, your tears, your blood, and everything in you on that stage when you walk off, or you have not done O'Neill. Because with a playwright like O'Neill, he just cuts the veins open, the blood washes all over the stage, and you get to hopefully learn something about your own demons or your own situations. You'll stand in this. And I said, there's an old expression about when you peer into the abyss and see your own reflection, you then can rise from it. And not until the point that you get into, you see your reflection in that abyss. And I said, O'Neill is letting you peer into his abyss here. This was his lowest moment. And there are people in the audience who may have been there at some point in their life, and they get to kind of exercise their own demons that would lead them to that by this play. So New Jersey in 2013, with a sold-out, packed house, huge weekend for a play written in 1914. That's pretty wild. 100 years later. Mantras is an evening in the theater is a chance to stir the soul. I only look at plays for this company and for this theater that have something to say that means something. That when you walk out, hopefully for 1 second, something clicked inside of you and you saw the world different, you saw your life different, you saw your relationship different. But I'd been working with an actor, you know, we're working on this and that and the other thing, and then all of a sudden, for one split sec, for the scene where he finally takes the pills, I watched Eugene O'Neill try to kill himself. And when you've made that turn, now you got it. And that's what these actors gave me. It was just a joy. Growing up, sure, grew up in Camden on Manningham Avenue. That's where I was born in West Jersey Hospital. So I'm a Camden kid, true and true. Stayed in Camden until about 1967. That's when we moved out. My dad moved us to Oakland because Camden started to slip into decline. So we moved into Oakland, which is only about 2 miles from the city, or from Camden. I pretty much did not make my dad very happy because every weekend I was right back in Camden with my friends and in the same neighborhood that we moved out of. Because I just kind of never left here. Went on to life and jobs and careers and all of that, but I just always had an interest in theater. I started my first play, I had exactly one line in The Crucible as a junior at Collingswood High School. Next year I ended up getting a lead in My Fair Lady, which terrified me because I did not want to sing in front of people, but they made me, so I took the lead. And then I didn't write a thing for almost 20 years. So in my mid-30s, and came out of the blue. Actually saw an angel. For real, that's the real story. In the newspaper, saw a picture from Angels in America, the Tony Kushner play. I just won all these Tonys on Broadway. Saw a picture of a man reaching up to an angel descending over a bed. Didn't know why I was fascinated, had no idea why I tore it out of the paper, but something shook. And I went to see the play about a month later in New York. Hadn't been to New York as an adult. I got lost in Times Square. I went to 47th Street instead, or 42nd Street instead of 47th, was totally discombobulated. And then when I finally got down, walking up Broadway, looked to the Walter Kerr Theater and saw on the marquee the angel bowed over crying, something snapped. And the story that I always wanted to write about my grandfather's bar in Camden, I realized I should write as a play. And that was the beginning. And then 2 weeks later, my first play was born in its first draft. And now here I sit years later, and I've written, not at all. Actually, one day, I had been writing and going to Sacred Heart Church across the street from the theater, where the theater is now. And my grandfather's old bar was on the corner, falling down, boarded up. 3 owners past my grandfather had left, and the last one just left it abandoned. And water had poured through for 10 years. It was a disgrace. There were drug addicts that were using the front. There were prostitutes probably in the backyard. But I had been writing these plays and going to New York. And then one day, Father Michael Doyle, as I'm coming out of church, I was on my way back to New York to do some work on a show of mine, play of mine. And Michael said, "Why don't you ever do your plays in Camden?" And I said, "Where?" And he said, "Here." And with that, he put into my mind the notion of starting plays in Camden. We did them in the basement of Sacred Heart Church then for 5 years. Started with our lights consisted of power strips with each scene, the different clip lights plugged into power strips. I am not making this up. And I always kept looking at this building. I always kept looking at the boarded up theater, or the boarded up bar, and said that should be a theater. And people laughed. First of all, people laughed when I said I wanted to do plays in Camden. People really laughed when I said that. But Helene Pearson from Heart of Camden laughed for the first 2 times, and then she'll tell the story now. When I asked her the 3rd time, she started to think about it and said, "This guy's serious." And she started attracting other people to the idea, an architect, and the man who ended up buying his foundation ended up buying the boarded up buildings. And then it took 5 years. We tore down the bar and we actually built a theater here. I've always been kind of possessed by this corner, and I think it's because I'm a playwright and we're all just whacked anyway. But I, for years, have never let this corner leave me. I grew up here on weekends. This was my grandfather's bar. So as a little kid, I used to be in here. But then when it was boarded up and I had moved out, I would still bring my friends to see this corner, to see this bar. When the neighborhood was bad, when it was really getting bad, I still would, we'd be sitting in a bar having a couple of beers. I'm like, let's go, I want to take you to Camden. I want to show you my grandfather's bar. And then after it was boarded up and closed, I would, at night, on Saturday nights, I'd listen to this old 1940s music, close my eyes, and see the bar alive, see the lights. And it was like it was coming back alive in my head. I've always been possessed. This corner, basically because one day somebody said to me, we're in a bar probably, where'd you grow up? This is in the early 90s, and I said Camden, and they went, eh. I'm like, you have no idea. You have no idea that when you go and all your friends were on the same 3 blocks, and you'd go home, and if you fell around the corner at your friend's house when you're 9 years old, your friend's mother would take you in, and your mother would take that kid in, and everybody just took care of each other. The business district was thriving. You never had to get in a car to go anywhere. Everything on my street, and we're talking in the late 1960s here. I had a bakery, I had a butcher shop, we had a drugstore across the street, we had a flower shop across the street, a furniture store down the street. Everything was self-contained in this neighborhood. Everybody's dad either worked at RCA or Campbell's Soup or any of the other Camden industries. You know, at the time my dad was working for another place, but basically all my friends' dads worked at one of those 2 places, Campbell's Soup or the Shipyard, which was the focus of my first play. So at that time, it was everyone, we all felt rich. We never felt like we were growing up in row homes and like that was anything wrong with it. That was the coolest thing in the world. You had a group of friends that were close. I went to St. Joe's grade school when I was a little kid, and you knew everyone was your friend. You know, it was like so cool to be here and be in the city. And then it started to decline, and the decline got worse, and the decline got worse, and everybody moved out. Not everybody. Some people were left behind. I actually addressed that in one of my plays. But that's why I could never let this go. I could never let Camden go. And I think that when you grow up here, Camden never lets you go. Of course.
Brought this thing to life for you.
Michael Doyle, first and foremost. Everything starts with Michael Doyle, and then people come in. The large contributors to this, Heart of Camden, a civic group that builds houses, rehabilitates houses in this neighborhood, came in and handled the construction. Dave Scanlon from Scanlon Foundation bought these buildings. There were 3 destroyed, abandoned buildings that the city actually charged for. They were falling down and were hazards, but they pay for them, Dave's Foundation. And then the biggest angel of all, Pepe Paperno, with his Dominica Foundation. Pepe came in, was putting money into this as a project. By the time it all ended, we started the construction, the economy crashed. All these union guys were going to come in and help out and do work on their own time just to be a part of this in Camden. They couldn't. They were all it was a lot of people out of work. And Pepe stepped up with his foundation. And by the time all was said and done, Pepe's foundation invested $750,000 into this building that we're sitting in now. Because Pepe, like myself, is a Camden kid who had to help, had to be here, had to help his neighborhood because this is where he grew up as well. Opening it first, just getting it through all of the fun with the city of Camden. You're not zoned properly. We don't want a theater in that neighborhood. They didn't really understand what it was. They understood when it opened. Building an audience, having people understand that you can be safe and come to Camden at night or in the day. People are so petrified. Some used to be. It's changing. Every day it's evolving. Our houses are larger and larger due to the work we're doing. So to bring an audience in, that people are not afraid to come into the city of Camden, and I said this to a few people in the city itself, what other entity of any company, we tend to do one of mine a season. So we've done My Play Last Rites, which is all about this city changing. It's actually set in this corner. So when we opened Last Rites here at the theater itself, you were sitting in the same place the play you were watching on stage was set in 40 years ago. I don't know when that's ever happened in the history of theater. You're in the place the play was inspired by that's now been rebuilt into a theater. So we did Last Rites, but as a playwright, I am extremely interested in this is a playwright-driven company. So I'm interested in the masters. I'm interested in Eugene O'Neill, Tennessee Williams, the two greatest American playwrights.
I was going to ask you why you pick
Bar
those
none.
two artists that you feel
My
the
grandfather's bar and my grandparents are the main two characters. When we redid it, when we opened this theater, September 10th, 2010, we opened with Last Rites. You were sitting in the location of the play that you were watching on the stage 40 years ago. The play was inspired by this place and returned to the actual corner it's set in, but now a theater instead of a saloon. I think that's one of the most unique theater stories that you're going to hear. I have never heard of a play going back to a building that was inspired that was now turned into a theater to do the play. So that we started there. I've done a few O'Neill plays now, Eugene O'Neill. I've done an entire season dedicated to Tennessee Williams at his 100th birthday, which I thought other theaters around the country would jump on. It was his 100th birthday. It's Tennessee Williams. There was not another theater in the country that gave their entire season to Tennessee Williams.
Why O'Neill and Williams? What's
They're-
so special?
They're the American master playwrights. They're the two writers that changed theater from what it was to what they turned it into with the reality and the guts and the truth on stage that a lot of playwrights and a lot of plays that you go to see for the last 50 years would never be on stage without those two writers. O'Neill has a raw poetry of guys on ships, a raw poetry of families with drug problems, a raw alcohol problem, people dealing with searching for the truth. And O'Neill had this raw poetry. Tennessee, on the other hand, Tennessee has this gorgeous language and this gorgeous way of telling a story to get to your heart. When I teach my playwriting classes, I teach about the difference between a head writer and a heart writer. I respect and admire head writers. Tom Stoppard is the greatest, to me, head writer of this generation, where it's a concept, it's a story, follow me, and take you through this journey. Then you get to O'Neill and Tennessee Williams, and what they do is they go, that's what I'm interested in. So we've done Clifford Odets plays. We've now done 2 Clifford Odets plays, Waiting for Lefty and Awake and Sing. Not seen in this area. I know Awake and Sing hadn't been done since the 40s. I don't think Waiting for Lefty, other than college productions, had ever been produced. Jason Miller, championship season, Pulitzer Prize winning play. I was privileged to know Jason in his life. I've done that play. I did it in the basement as an absolute tribute to him. We've done one-act festivals back when we first started in the basement. The one-act festival that I'm the most proud of is the second year of the Iraq War. I did an anti-war one-act festival where I got plays from all over the United States. We actually did a play from, from San Francisco and Illinois and from all over the place. And I think the only other company that was touching on the war this early into the Iraq War was Tim Robbins and Tim Robbins' company, which everyone gave him holy hell for, that, oh my God, you're anti-American, you're against the war. Well, now here we are in 2013 going, well, maybe the artists do know a little bit more about what's really the truth. And we did plays that really shook people up, and it was about returning veterans, and it was scary stuff on stage. So we try to bring things to South Camden that you can't see anywhere else. We're going to give you a play that you're not going to be able to go to a theater and see, even in Philadelphia or in a neighborhood like a Cherry Hill or a Haddonfield. You want to come and see our next play we're doing, August Wilson, Radio Golf. You want to see Radio Golf, you're coming to Camden. You want to see Awake and Sing, you're coming to Camden. Next season, we're doing a Tennessee Williams play. No, of course. But it's called Kingdom of Earth. Kingdom of Earth, I saw at a festival in Provincetown, Massachusetts last September. It was originally called Seven Descents of Myrtle. Bombed in the 60s, on Broadway for like 20 performances. It was way ahead of its time. So I decided to open our next season with this. And since then, I found out another person involved with the festival was involved with a South Carolina production. And just 2 days ago, a friend of mine who runs the Mississippi Tennessee Williams Festival is doing it in Columbus, Mississippi. So Mississippi, Provincetown, South Carolina, Camden. That's it. And we're hoping, all of us involved, is that a play like that is going to now start getting done again. And people are going to see the genius of this man and his writing. And even at the end of his life, when his skills were declining. I mean, a lot of wine and second pills will do that too. But that's the kind of work that we bring here. And again, with my work, we're going to be doing a world premiere of my newest play will be world premiering here in January. So we do plays that you're going to come in, you're going to see something, and if we've done it right, and if we've selected the right material, you're going to leave, and you're going to be talking about this play. You're not just, hopefully you're going to go out, and instead of just seeing what's ever on the television and, oh yeah, that was sweet, you're going to be like, whoa, wait a minute. This really opened my eyes and made me think. We did The Exonerated here, which was the story about people who were on death row who were innocent. And the best discussion I had, and we had big houses for that. We did it in the church basement. A man came to me and he said, my wife took me here. Okay. I'm pro-death penalty. Okay. But I got to tell you, for a second, just a second, I saw the other side and I said, you're why I did the play. You saw the other side for 1 second. Still pro-death penalty. That's the kind of stuff we do. When I first started this theater company, I created the mantra, it just came to me and I wrote it down, that an evening in the theater is a chance to stir the soul. And that is what I absolutely believe, is that if you're in the right theater at the right time, seeing the right play produced by the right people, there's something inside of you that can shift, that can move, that can shake, that can change. Just like when I saw Angels in America, and I sat in New York, and I'm watching Tony Kushner's masterpiece play, and I couldn't get out of the seat. I could not get out. The angel, boom, lights out, end of play, and I got goosebumps on me right now. It's the same feeling. When it's done, when it's there, when it's the right piece, and you're the right person to see the right piece. Lives can change. My life changed from seeing a play. So kind of that's the vision of this company, because the architect said, I have never designed a theater, I have no idea. So we put in 96 seats. We made it a 3 stories of fly space, very comfortable dressing rooms, huge green room, great lighting system, and the seats are comfortable, they're padded, they're not hard, seats you would see somewhere else. And when you see a play here, you're going to be comfortable. So I guess, my life is turning more and more and more into theater, as we go to the next level here. The next level has to be, this theater has to be run more, has to be operating more, there has to be more and more plays in here, and dance recitals, and kids groups, and kids theater. In order to do that, I need people here all the time. And right now we don't have that luxury. We are kind of backwards. We have this wonderful space. We bought it from Heart of Camden for $1 the day after the theater opened. The company owns it. But now to get funding to have people run it is difficult. And we're getting there. But until that happens, there are a lot of people doing an awful lot of work, all hours of the day, night, weekend, around their day jobs to make this happen. So our next step, full-time employees, this theater running all the time, and a children's theater operating.
You are participating. You're the audience, the actors need you. Without us in the pews in the seats, nothing's happening. Like nothing. But put the people in the seats, put the people on the stage, and we are engaged together. See, that's what's so great about live theatre, because it's a participation. And without us and the audience, those folks on the stage, they're not going anywhere.
And the participation, so...
Live theatre has always been, over the centuries, a great uplifting reality for the human spirit, everywhere, and my goodness, like when you start reading Shakespeare, so, oh my heavens, how did he do that? And I still remember First time I ran in was a sophomore, not freshman year. And first Shakespeare play, and it was As You Like It. And I thought it was totally crazy, you know. Like, and what were we bothering doing this thing for? But I learned fast.
This belief that if everybody just tried to fix up one little section, their own little corner, their own little row home, their own little park, their own little backyard, if we all realized that all we have to do is fix up what we can fix up, what we are capable of trying to affect, then I think that I'm going to leave a nice mark with this theater, so that when I am long gone and no longer here, that someone is running it, someone is doing the kind of work that needs to be done, someone is reaching out to the people of the city, someone's reaching out to the kids of the city, and someone's bringing in people from outside the city, so that you can see that Camden is a viable neighborhood, it is a viable city. It's not the most dangerous place in the world. It's not a place to be afraid of, it's a place to celebrate. And I think that if I can leave that with all of this that so many of us have accomplished, well, I'll be pretty happy with that.
It's great. Like 30 years, you know, so we have been working at it bit by bit, and miraculously certain things are great, and we would never have ever have dreamed of a theater there, or that we would ever have the money. But we wouldn't have the money only for Peggy.
I saw an...
We'll get hospital waste, you know what I mean? So to protect real estate outside the city, you put what would hurt real estate into the city. That is true across this country. And it's deadly, you know, because it doesn't lift anything. Mm-hmm. So this particular, a theater coming, being built here is a sort of a lift out of that kind of direction altogether. Mm-hmm. It lifts life out of its drudgery into a level that is, you know, big on appreciation and acknowledgement, and when the actors, they portray a piece of life and an audience is with them, and there's a hope that the audience is seeing something and being lifted in a way. And I sometimes like to have, in my life, I like to have very lively theater, because I have too much drama in my life. Me, Michael Doyle, has too much drama, because I'm dealing with poverty and violence and murder and destruction and damage and all of that type of thing. So I would like to see that life would be lifted, and that people would go home with a sense of uplift. So I don't need this is me talking about Michael Doyle. He doesn't need any drama. I have enough without tragedy. So somehow it's in the tragedy that the purest truth emerges. Like, it takes a lot of pressure to make a diamond, you know. So it's so in that sense, the theater person writing somehow seeks for the drama, you know.
Do you have a favorite?
Well, if we didn't have the theater, it creates a platform for him to promote theater, to bring audiences and so forth, so that in the sense that a theater is, again, so different from some of the facilities we got, in the combination of having the place and having the people and especially Joe so interested in theater, the combination can in no way bring us down, but bring us up, you know. So that's it. Because it's I don't know, it's classy to have a theater. It's and live theater. There's not one movie theater in the city of Camden, and there used to be 24. So, but movie theater, it does not affect a life. It doesn't enter into the human spirit, as it were. It's not flesh and blood, you know. And so small theaters are of great advantage in towns and villages across the country, and they're very enriching and very uplifting, and those kind of words you can use. It does, and it's, of course, theaters as old as early Greece. You know, that idea of, you know, performance and like bringing reality onto a stage, and the human voice and the human being interaction, actors. And when you look at Shakespeare, you know, how he could take, well, he so much took history and made it live in the theater. So I don't think you can't go wrong by having a theater. It's quite close to what the human spirit desires.
Is there anything in your...
I did say to him, you know, he was, you know, writing plays and putting them on. So I said, why don't you do that in Camden? I'm always sort of, you know, promoting or looking out for Camden. And he said to me, where? I said, here. So then we built a stage in the cafeteria, which is still there, and we're able to put on plays. In fact, Joe's more famous play, The Last Rites, was put on in the cafeteria. And people started coming and all of that. Then that kind of moved to the idea, maybe, wouldn't it be great if after doing Last Rites, and which was set in his grandfather's bar, and right on the corner there, beside the school. So the idea, well, maybe if we were to renovate, you know, the old bar and make it theater, it kind of, I don't know, like logically, sort of that concept developed. And we have a building organization here since, you know, 86, and called the Heart of Camden Housing. So we were doing a house at a time, and restoration. We've been doing it for that length of time. So it was nothing new to us to take an old building and see could we restore it. So that would kind of flow naturally from the fact that the theater had started. It was right here in the play that Joe had written, Last Rites. He has two priests from Sacred Heart in the play, because it was right here. So it wasn't a big jump from having the plays here underneath the church to thinking about, well, maybe wouldn't it be a great thing if the location of the Last Rites was made into a theater. Because in a way the play had made it into a theater. It was set in the bar.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when that building, it was empty then for several years, and the last owner, and I think the last owner took out all the beautiful old mirrors and all that, and I would go over to the bar when Huey Powell had it, and I loved it. It was a lovely bar. However, and if I brought you over with me and sat down to have a beer, but Huey would never take any money from me. Now, I would have gone over much more often if he would just let me pay, but he wouldn't. And even if I brought over two people with me, nobody paid when I went there. So it was like, and I love that kind of bar with the old wood and just the scene. Oh, it's great. But that was my problem with Huey, whom I was very fond of. He wouldn't let me pay. So anyway, then somebody came on after Huey, and didn't do that well, and the whole thing kind of collapsed. So then it was empty there for years, and so when it was examined with the thought of restoration, it was wood frame. So the rain had gotten in and you couldn't restore it. So then the only thing to do was to pull it down, which we did. And in fact, the fella that pulled it down, he was donating his services, and I knew him, and so he put me up on this big, I don't know what you call it, a backhoe or something, and I was never on one before in my life, and he showed me, pull this, and you'll send this big arm out, and then you take it down and pull it back, and so I was the first one to begin to pulling down the building with this big thing, like, and I loved it, you know, but pulling down the building. So down it came, and so that kind of, now what? Do you know what I mean? We have a hole in the ground. So the Heart of Camden, it's run by a wonderful director, Helene Pearson. You know, Helene she's great, and I always say about Helene is that she's gutsy, she's brilliant, and she's fun. I mean, those three together is, you could have two of them, but not three of them. So, but Helene, then she would be the one that would, you know, give most credit to for having the vision to go for it. And then there was this dear friend of ours, Pepe Perno, and Pepe was born in Italy. His mother brought him over here in her arms, and she was up here on 4th Street, just about 3 blocks up or 4, and there was in a sweat factory or whatever you call it there, coming home with threads in her sweat at the end of the day. And so she was a wonderful woman. Her name was Dominica, and her son has done well in this business, and then he created a foundation, Dominica Foundation. And he came up with the money in order to build that theater, $700,000.
Was it all his money? Or?
It was. Now it was originally that there were unions who were going to go into it and then take off some of the expenses of it by donating time and labor to the theater. However, the huge slump came at the time when the bottom fell out of the economy. So then the unions weren't working. So that's why it fell to Pepe, God bless him, and his dear mother, who was gone before us at the time, and to produce that money and rebuild it. And he had a wonderful, simple way of looking at it, and he remembered so much that Saturday was the day to go to the movies, and you went to the movies on Saturday. You didn't need much money, and you got popcorn, and it was the glory of his youth. So he had this dream in his head that, you know what I mean, we create a theater, and maybe we could have movies there for the children, and so we do. But that was his dream. He wanted children in Camden, on the very same street that he was raised, to be able on a Saturday to go into a theater right beside them and walk in there and see a movie. So that's how that kind of developed. It was a godsend, and it was a wonderful, like the way that these things converged together, the play in the church basement, looking at the old bar can't be restored, pulling it down, a hole in the ground, and then this man, through connecting here, Pepe, and he produced the money, and glory be to God, there's a theater in South Camden.
Joe,
like we, Sacred Heart did some, we had raised some money whereby we put in the pavements, the beautiful brick pavement. That was, we did that. And we did the brick fronting of the building. The Heart of Camden took half of it and we took the other half. So that we participated to that extent in it. But it just the way at the time that there wasn't, it didn't work out as easily for Pepe as he might have thought at the beginning. But he is very generous, you know, and so his thoughts would be on the children. That's where his heart is, and helping them, and then our children can go over there from our school and be there's a wonderful theatre person in our school by the name of Teresa Banford, and she has degrees in theatre, so she actually works with the children, and then from time to time to put on something there in the theatre. So